is Monday, and it's April 1st, 2013. I will call this meeting of the Norfolk City Council to order. This is an open meeting, and posted in the corner over here, right as you come in the door, is the actual Open Meeting Act. Please join us, if you would, in a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Continue with roll call.
Coy.
Here.
Lange.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Moaning.
Here.
Faust.
Here.
File.
Here.
Okay, under action, can I ask for approval of the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion, Your Honor.
Second.
A motion with a second to approve the consent agenda as provided. If you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Did you say something to me? As well, can I have a motion to approve the full agenda?
I'll make the motion. Second.
A motion with a second to approve the full agenda. Again, if you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Okay. On our regular agenda, first is a special presentation, which is a proclamation for April 2013 as Fair Housing Month. Whereas April 11, 2013 marks the 45th anniversary of the passage of the U.S. Fair Housing Law. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 is amended, which enunciates a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, creed, nation, origin, sex, familial status, and handicap, and encourages fair housing opportunity for all citizens. And whereas the Norfolk Housing Agency and the Norfolk Housing Development Division of the City of Norfolk are committed to highlight the fair housing law, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 by continuing to add discrimination in our community, to support programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and to plan partnership efforts with other organizations to help assure every American of their right to fair housing. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Sue Flickman, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, by the power vested in me, do hereby proclaim April 2013 as Fair Housing Month. Do we have anyone? Sheila? Okay. With that, we'll move right on then to public hearing. First is a public hearing at the request of Kelly Knutson, doing business as Knutson Apartments, for a zoning change from R1 single-family residential district to R2 1- and 2-family district at 1704 West Phillip Avenue. I will open the public hearing, and I believe, Trent, you might want to bring us up to date.
Okay. Mayor, Council, this Kelly Knutson came to us, and there was a condemned house on this property. It's right across from the school, and they were interested in building a new structure there, a new house, and he wanted to do a duplex, something that would fit in that lot there. We really didn't have an issue with that. It's R1 now, so we couldn't really do a duplex. Obviously, this would be similar to Kerry Warner and Lane Warner built a triplex at 15th and Park, I believe. So it'd be something similar to that. And we feel it's a good location, and housing is something that we feel that we need. So Planning Commission looked at it, and they were comfortable with it. So.
Okay.
Trent, from the Planning Commission, was there any discussion on traffic concerns with it being right on the corner of 18th and Phillip?
There was some neighbors that came in, and I know they did come in and express some concern there. They thought maybe that might get more congested. They still have to meet off-street, parking. They still have to have parking requirements regardless, whether it's a single family there or a duplex. So regardless, even if it was R1, we'd still have some vehicles in there. So
Any other comments or questions from this council? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that does want to speak to this in any way? I'm seeing some awful familiar faces, so I don't know that. Council, anything additional on this at all? Okay. Then Beth, are we ready for a Planning Commission report?
version.
Do you want me to read it for you?
No, that's okay. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 19th at the request of Kelly Knudsen for the zoning change. He wishes to build a duplex on the property. 3 neighbors voiced concerns about traffic, but the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval on the zone change on a 7-0 vote.
Okay, and with that, I'll close this public hearing and ask for a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5249, changing the zoning from R1 to R2 at 1704 West Phillip Avenue.
Your Honor, I would introduce ordinance number 5249.
Second that, Your Honor.
Okay, a motion with a second. Is there any further discussion at all? Okay, if not, are you ready?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the city, providing when the ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and for the publication of the ordinance in pamphlet form.
And with that, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5249 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 5249 on second and third.
Second?
We have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass on second and third. Any discussion? Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5249 carries on second and third.
And next is a public hearing to amend Section 19-1 of the City Code to update a reference to state statutes and to address matters of procedure, and to amend Section 27-56 of the City Code to clarify voting requirements for the Planning Commission to authorize a conditional use permit. I will open the public hearing, and again, Trent, I believe you're on.
Mayor and Council, this basically changes 3 things in 19-1. The first part of that is revised statutes, which we have to adopt Robert's Rules or some type of organizational. So Robert's Rules, that will be the first part of that, is the adoption of that. Second part of that comes into play with when you table something and how it dies on the table with reorganization. So the third part explains on conditional uses on 27-56, and when you authorize a conditional use permit, you got to have a minimum of 5 votes.
Trent, you referenced an update to reference. Am I understanding that what you're saying is, as far as the Robert's Rules or rules of, that there was some changes to that needed to be, I mean, I guess I would assume that the same Robert's Rules apply to us as we sit up here too, right? And so,
I believe so, yeah.
I don't know, I'm confused.
You can jump in when you want here, but I do believe we didn't have anything adopted before for the Planning Commission.
When with some of the questions that have arisen, this ordinance really reflects reaction to a couple of things. One of those is before it was withdrawn, there were some questions in regard to the storage sheds out west of the hospital. There were some questions about with the tabling, what happened with that. We really hadn't been called upon to look at what was provided there, and we went to look at the rules of the Planning Commission, found that they didn't really have any that addressed that. And so what we did is, you're seeing a couple of changes here. One is the adopting the current version of Robert's Rules of Order, which by ordinance, this, Mayor, to answer your question, by ordinance, the City Council has adopted those. So you don't, if they make some changes to them, you don't do anything. They've been there right along. Okay. The second thing that's happened is that There were some questions about what happened with the, in regard to the tabling of the action of the Planning Commission and the possibility of tabling it or getting rid of that application in regard to the storage sheds. And it wasn't as clear as we thought it should have been in regard to what happened with that, so we put in the second paragraph of 19-1 that just said, follows what happens with this body. With this body, if something's tabled and it's not removed from the table, we have the new election and the reorganization of the council. Anything that's laying on the table when the council is reorganized dies if it hasn't been removed from the table and dealt with. That again is by ordinance. So this is just a similar ordinance that would apply to the Planning Commission. And then as Trent says, the third thing in there is, again, this was something that was coming up. This was really a question that came up a couple of times when we would have an issue with involving a conditional use permit before the Planning Commission. And there are, of course, 9 appointed planning commissioners. And what happens if there's 2 of them gone? If there's 7 planning commissioners, does it take 4 of them to approve it, or does it take 5? And what we've done here is we've merely reflected there's case law and statutes that deal with the city council making any zoning change. You need 5 affirmative votes. If there's an 8-member council, you need to have a majority of the members elected to the body. So again, we just took that and we put that in the same context with the Planning Commission and said that when the Planning Commission is dealing with conditional use permit, they similarly need to have 5 affirmative votes, or a majority of the 9, 5 affirmative votes to do that. So rather than having somebody, we can point to it this way and say that's what the rules are when somebody questions that. So we really don't think we've changed anything here. We think that we've clarified it, and we've really pretty much just written down what the policies have been. Happy to answer any other questions you have.
Any other questions at all, Council? Okay. With that, ready for a report?
The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 19th to consider those amendments and approved them on a 7-0 vote.
Short and sweet. Okay, with that, I will close the hearing and ask for consideration of ordinance number 5250 to amend section 19-1 of the City Code, and as well to amend section 27-56 of the City Code, clarifying voting requirements for the Planning Commission to authorize a conditional use permit.
Your Honor, I would move consideration.
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion with a second for consideration of ordinance number 5250. Any further discussion? If not, short title.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend section 19-1 of the official City Code to update a reference to state statutes and to address matters of procedure, to amend section 27-56 of the Code to clarify voting requirements for the Planning Commission, to authorize a conditional use permit, to provide when the ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and for publication in pamphlet form.
Okay, and with that, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5250 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move to suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5250 on second and third.
Second that, Your Honor.
We have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass on second and third reading. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5250 carries on second and third.
Okay. Seeing nothing else on the agenda then, we are adjourned. I hurt for you, Beth. I want to clear my throat.
That's